Before we begin today's episode, I wanted to let everyone know that AntsCanada.com is having its big annual holidays promo, the 2020 sale. That's 20% off all Hybrid Series ant farms and gear packs from now until January 2020, plus a free copy of our newly updated Ultimate Ant Keeping Handbook. Right now at AntsCanada.com. Click the link in the description to get your AC ant farm today. And now, enjoy today's ant episode. Speaking of trees and being vigilant, making sure everything was in order, I noticed the canopy of Vortecia, our treetop forest home to our aggressive weaver ant colony, the Emerald Empire, was in need of some serious maintenance. First, the piping of the rain system had unstuck from the glass. Also, the trees had seriously overgrown, and they needed to be cut back big time. But there's just one problem. The only way in was to open these front glass doors. And well, it seems the weaver ants had decided to fuse its main leaf nest to the glass. Oh boy, this whole maintenance operation was going to be interesting. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC family. Enjoy! Last week, we had a fun-filled journey exploring various kingdoms in our AC Antiverse. We visited Pacmania, this moss-adorned home of our Suriname horned frog. Also, we prepped the moat surrounding Skull Island, home to our ghost ants. And of course, our biggest accomplishment last week, we crafted the greatest vivarium we've ever created in the AC Antiverse, a multi-species bioactive domain for the Dark Knights. These exciting journeys of discovery and adventure around the ant room certainly don't end there. This week holds yet again another exhilarating episode as we continue to dig deep, climb up, and experience firsthand the marvelous territories of our beloved ant colonies. AC family, without further ado, let's begin this week's exploration. Standing tall in our collection of ants and other animals, here in the AC Antiverse is the canopy of Vortecia, home to the extravagant Emerald Empire. This savage colony of weaver ants, scientifically known as Ecophila smaragdina, has shown us their brilliance through the building of their cool leaf basket nests in the trees, their collection of protein sources, and even through their apparent understanding of sustainability and growth management of the Vortecian trees on which they live. It seems that we have seen practically everything these mighty and hardworking arboreal ants can do. But this time, I wanted to push the boundary of what is possible for the Emerald Empire's housing. And it involves sticking my arm, and even my face, into their highly guarded territories. Yup, it's totally crazy. But hey, someone's got to do it. But don't worry, I have a plan, so stay tuned for that. But before we get started, for those of you who are new to the channel, let's catch you up to speed. In celebration for reaching 3 million subscribers, I decided to try keeping these highly popular ants in the ant world Asian weaver ants. Native to Southeast Asia, these weaver ants are known for their arboreal life as they build their nests atop trees. To create their homes, they use silk produced by their larvae, effectively gluing tree leaves together. The transpiration from the leaves helps naturally humidify the insides of their leaf nests, and as the leaves wilt, the ants go on to create new leaf nests on the same tree. They seem to know when to start new nests, which they do well in advance, before their current nests wilt, and appear to somehow have a feeling for how much they're able to build sustainably, so that their host plant doesn't die out. They're surely one of the most captivating ant colonies I've ever kept. 3 months after the creation of the canopy of Vortecia, this is what the territory looks like now. Look, the trees had overgrown. Seems they had been working on plans for this money tree to grow much taller, and their plant management initiatives have been working. This money tree has grown leaves that extend up to the top mesh. But here's the very concerning problem with that. If I leave this tree unchecked, I know for certain that its force would eventually push through the mesh, destroying the terrarium and setting the ants free. Hey, wait a second. Could this be the Emerald Empire's master plan of escape? Okay, not gonna even go there. Also, there were other tuning and maintenance issues that needed to be dealt with, like dislodged piping from the rain system, glass cleaning, a hanging dead leaf nest which drove my OC mind insane, and this stray plastic cup that fell from their feeding plate, which I've been dying for months to pick up and dispose. Given these major and minor concerns, it was no doubt in my mind that maintenance was needed. But due to the way their enclosure was designed, the only way I could get in was by opening these two front glass panels. So, going into Vortecia wasn't something I could do every day. Vortecia maintenance definitely was something I intended on doing as infrequently as possible, and only when necessarily needed. Now, AC family, check out what else I was thinking regarding all this. So the Dark Knight's new bioactive planted vivarium home we made last week, full of creatures like millipedes, bagworms, jumping spider, etc., living with the ant colony, made for a very self-sustaining ecosystemic environment. So I figured then, if Vortecia was also made much more bioactive, theoretically, it would mean that I'd have to open the terrarium less often, and perhaps even improve the quality of the Emerald Empire's life by making their home much more natural, much more bioactive. And so, AC family, after careful thought, it was then that I decided, while doing maintenance on Vortecia, it was also time for us to upgrade the territories a notch and transform Vortecia into a multi-species bioactive vivarium. But before I tell you how I'm going to do that, and what creatures I plan on adding to Vortecia, there was a neighboring ant kingdom that was also in need of some maintenance. To the west of Vortecia sits the mystical double floating islands of Avista, home to our big-headed ants, the bobbleheads. You, the AC family, named them after the big heads of the supermajor workers. Take a look at how some of these supermajors sport rather comically enlarged heads, compared to the ordinary workers. The big heads specialize in cutting things up, by the way. The great jaw force of the colony. Of the entire AC Antiverse, the home of the bobbleheads stands out, because it is our only truly open concept glassless ant setup. As you may see here, the potted bonsai plants are rooted down into the soils, which extend into these two jars, which hold the island up. Meanwhile, these jars are placed in the middle of a glass enclosure, whose short walls are covered in baby powder, thereby keeping the ants within the premises. From afar, the home of the bobbleheads look like floating mini gardens. A second island is situated there in the back, but we'll visit that island in a sec. At the center of the main island grows a bonsai red banyan tree that we call the Great Tree of Life. The tree gets its name because it provides life to the bobbleheads in a few interesting ways. First, the tree offers the bobbleheads shelter as they nest beneath the solid tree, protected among its roots. It also houses herds of mealybugs, which the ants farm and milk for their sweet honeydew excretions. Finally, the tree also eats up their ant poop, a great fertilizer. In fact, this partnership between ant and tree has been going so well that the tree has grown profusely, and I've had to continually trim the tree back almost once a week. In fact, I'm about to do it now. Here we go. I started with the outer leaves. Now watch this, guys. Every time I snip or fiddle around with their sacred tree of life, the bobbleheads get super mad. The ants never back down from defending their precious tree. This has become a weekly ritual now. And oh boy, here they come. The bobbleheads came rushing out of their nest with a sole mission to bite and attack my giant hands from the skies. Sorry, bobbleheads, but this process is essential for the maintenance of your sacred tree of life. Hang tight. Okay, I'm done. Sheesh. No need to get feisty. Now, trimming the tree was not all that needed to be done. First, the second island's tree had actually died. This once luscious bonsai tree, of a different species, was now withered and dead. I suppose the species of tree did not fare well in the semi-shaded conditions of my window, so it died. However, I couldn't just get rid of the island, because ants were still nesting within its soils, as well. I needed to plant a new tree there, to replace the dead tree, because it does seem trees happen to be the bobblehead's secret to success. I mean, look at how big the colony has grown over time. You can truly appreciate the sheer size of the colony every time I water the islands. They always come rushing out with their brood, and I even get a glimpse of the royal queens surfacing at times. It was clear that this super colony was now bigger than ever. And so, AC family, aside from restoring their second island by planting a replacement tree, I felt it was finally time to also give the bobbleheads a third floating island. Back to Vortecia. I knew making the territories more bioactive meant introducing more organisms to Vortecia. And so here was my plan. First, I knew I needed to increase the ground cover vegetation. So I felt this gorgeous looking heartleaf philodendron, scientifically called Philodendron cordatum, one of the hardiest terrarium plants I know, was perfect. Next, I wanted to add some awesome leaf litter, scooped up from my neighborhood. It contained tons of springtails, isopods, millipedes, and beneficial mites that would help break down organic waste to help fertilize the plants in Vortecia. And hey, look what else I found. This leaf litter also contained a miniature species of forest roach. How cool, right? Speaking of which, check out the next creatures I wanted to add. Dubia roaches, scientifically known as Blaptica dubia. These roaches, as you may or may not know, are my feeder roaches, meaning I pre-crush them and feed them to various animals of my ant room. But after thinking about it for a bit, I figured these roaches would be an awesome addition to Vortecia. They can eat decaying leaves that fall to the floor, plus possibly the dead leaf nests from the trees. If you wish to know more about these underrated and seldom recognized dubia roaches, here's a video I made about them and their home. Plus, I have been noticing that every now and then, the Emerald Empire has been catching darkling beetles in Vortecia. The mealworms and superworms that we feed to our various colonies in the ant room are actually larvae of darkling beetles. I guess sometimes the superworms survive my pre-crushing somehow and manage to escape the deadly mandibles of their ant predators, seeking out safe locations within the terrariums to proceed with the process of pupation and development into these shiny black darkling beetles. And it seems the Emerald Empire has managed to successfully hunt these survivors at ground level. I've actually seen this happen with the Fire Nation and Dark Knights as well. Given these past experiences, I figured, why not try to allow insect prey to populate the floors of Vortecia, reproduce on their own while eating up decaying matter like they would in the wild, but also provide the weaver ants with a supply of prey items. Now wait, I know what you guys are thinking. AntsCanada has changed his ways. He's now condoning live feeding. Let's cancel him. Hold on. I still make it a personal rule to never feed live prey to animals like ants that don't need to eat live prey, because it's a slow and painful death for the prey item. But in this case, the prey animals would have a great chance at escaping and avoiding the ants by burrowing into the leaf litter or into the ground, and can otherwise feed, breed, and live normally as they would in the wild. It theoretically would be an equal playing field for prey and predator, in my mind anyway. So the cruelty factor isn't technically even an issue both for the dubia roaches and darkling beetles living with the Emerald Empire in Vortecia. The ants could simply wander around the forest floor below their leaf nests to hunt for prey, which the ants do in the wild. I am sure that the coexistence of Vortecian prey and predators would make for a very interesting bioworld. So first, I needed to remove this dead tree on the second island in order to replace it with the new tree for the bobbleheads. I removed the entire island from the island network. Taking the island off its foundation base, you can see that the jar is filled with soil, in which the bobbleheads were still nesting. I knew that removing the tree from the pot had to be done with the utmost care, because surely there were still ants nesting in the soils. I was already expecting a ton of bobbleheads to come rushing out once they felt me touching their dead tree. So, here goes nothing. I carefully removed the rock from the island, then proceeded to cut the tree off at the roots, then attempted to firmly but carefully pull the dead tree from the pot. Pop! The tree broke right off, and I made a bit of a mess, but thankfully, no ants came boiling out. Perhaps they didn't care about the tree much since it had already died. Good. Now, in its place, I wanted to plant this baby Schefflera plant, which also happens to be the same species as one of the trees used in Vortecia. I feel this would be a better adapted plant to the conditions next to my window, seeing as it's done so well in Vortecia. I planted the Schefflera plant in. Okay, so this was the craziest thing I've ever done in my life. I know you've heard me say this before, but no, this is. As you may or may not know, although these weaver ants don't have stingers like the Fire Nation, they still possess some powerful mandibles, and a bite from these ladies combined with a painful formic acid spray is enough to make any trespasser scream. Plus, what made this operation extra scary was that the Emerald Empire had decided to fuse their main leaf nest to the door of the terrarium. Could this get any more scary? I worry that as soon as I opened this glass door, it would rattle the nest, setting the weaver ants into an angry frenzy. I needed to prepare myself and make sure I had a plan of attack. I needed to know what things I had to grab, cut, pull out, and add before I went into the territories. There was no time to think as soon as those glass doors were open. I ran through the motions and checklist of tasks in my mind many times, as I knew it was imperative to get things right the first time, so the tank would be open for the shortest amount of time possible. It wasn't a matter of if the weaver ants would be attacking and escaping, it was a matter of how many. So AC family, here was my plan. Are you ready? So apparently, there's a superstition or tradition among mango farmers who have to deal with these ants when harvesting mangoes. Legend has it that if you whisper to the ants, telling them that you're a friend and aren't going to harm them, the ants will leave you alone and allow you to pick the fruit without launching an attack. If the legends were true, this told me then that it was possible to work around these ants as long as I was gentle and not just obtrusively moving in, shaking things around like a predator. Boy, did I hope I was right and the legends true. I put on my gloves and covered my hands and arms with baby powder. There were ants that were already showing signs of wanting to tear my skin up at the earliest opportunity. Why so aggressive, ladies? You can even see them here congregating at the door opening, ready to greet trespassers with mandibles and acid. But I had no choice. Vortecia needed maintenance, and there was no other way. I took a deep breath and looked down at the key that would unlock the door. AC family, behold, the new island I planned on connecting to Avista. Isn't it cute? It had 3 bonsai money trees, also one of the 2 trees in Vortecia, so it was bound to do well as part of Avista. Green moss grew like a carpet along the front of the island. I prepared the tray on which the new island would rest by mixing baby powder and rubbing alcohol, and painting it along the walls. Once dried, no bobblehead would be able to scale these vertical surfaces. I then proceeded to add the 2 new islands to Avista, and arranged for the driftwood to create the connecting bridge between the 3 landmasses. And there we have it. Avista is now officially an archipelago. Aren't these islands beautiful, AC family? Looking from afar, the islands were a luscious garden of greenery. I couldn't wait to watch the bobbleheads explore their new territories. And of course, as always, in celebration of their new home, I provided them with a tasty bite. "Please don't bite," I whispered softly, summoning up the most calming words that came to mind. "Please subscribe to my channel." Okay, just kidding. That's not what I said. "Emerald Empire, I come in peace. I'm a friend, your creator of worlds." The ants menaced me from the edges, watching the tape being removed from the doors. "I am not interested in destroying your home." With the tapes removed, I unlocked the door and slowly opened one of the panels. Oh, there. The glass panel opened, and to my surprise, the leaf nest detached quite easily without too much fuss. Thank goodness. While some brave ants decided to wander out and escape, I decided not to mind them for now, and focus on the task at hand, moving as slowly and gently as possible. It seemed to be working. The ants weren't rushing in a mad panic, but were strangely standing quite still watching me. First things first, I went in and wiped the glass and the sticky pads of the piping to improve its suction. Reattaching. There. Pipe reinstalled. One task down. Next, it was time to go into the canopy. I went in carefully and snipped away at excess leaves. It tripped me out to see the weaver ant nests so exposed to the outside world for the first time since they were moved in. I had to be extra careful not to touch any of the main branches or groupings of ants. All it took was one startled ant to hit the panic button, which would set off the release of thousands of angry weaver ants onto my body and ultimately out into the ant room. Snip, snip. I placed the clippings on the ground. As these leaves decay, they'd contribute to the bioactivity of the vivarium. This would also make sure that we keep any weaver ants still clinging on to these leaves. I could feel some weaver ants crawling on my neck now, but surprisingly not biting me. Yet. They even crawled up my legs. The weaver ants were now all over the immediate area. And on me. The whole time, I felt like I was performing a complex medical surgery, with guns pointed at me, ready to fire at any moment. I was holding my breath and made sure to be unwaveringly present in mind and body. My movements needed to be precise and accurate. Every moment was crucial. My heart was beating loudly in my ears the whole time. I noticed so many ants were already wandering out of the terrarium. And it was in that moment that I received my very first bite. The bobbleheads were biting the superworm housewarming gift I gave them with such joy and gusto. It wasn't long before the bobbleheads had discovered the 2 new islands we had prepared for them. It was so awesome to see. Ants traveled across the driftwood bridge to check out the new territories they could call home. It was moments like this that made ant keeping just so fulfilling. Ah! I brushed the biting ant away. Despite the bite, surprisingly, the majority of the ants were still calm. I had to keep going and not be bothered by the pain. I proceeded to carefully remove the dead leaf nest and rest it onto the floor. Gosh, I had dreamed of removing this hanging piece for months. I can't even begin to describe. Now it was time to add the leaf litter. I made sure that every bit of the ground was covered in this magical medium sauce, teeming with bioactive life forms. I proceeded to add the plant. Then I dumped the dubia roaches. I threw in the superworms to join the party. And just when I thought everything was complete, I remembered there was one last suction cup to re-stick onto the wall to fixate the pipe. But to reach this, I had to open the other glass door panel. Now, all of the canopy of Vortecia was exposed to the outside world. Reaching deeper into the terrarium to re-stick the pipe onto the glass, I found myself face to face with the Emerald Empire, just inches away from my head. And when I thought that I had experienced the worst part, there came another big surprise. Another bite. While the bobbleheads were enjoying their superworm, another battle was happening. Just nearby, the bobbleheads had seized a trespasser. A wandering weaver ant had somehow managed to set foot on the new island. Of course, there was no hope for the weaver ant against the bobbleheads, who pulled at the weaver ant from all sides and mauled it to death. A second weaver ant had also been unfortunate enough to land on the island, and the bobbleheads were quick to capture it. I suppose the weaver ants managed to climb up into the lighting fixture above Avista and fell down to their demise into the foreign ant kingdom. There was just no hope for them though, as they were greatly outnumbered. The bobbleheads were indeed savage. Ugh, the Emerald Empire was indeed savage. I had to finish up now. I restuck the last piping found on the other side of Vortecia, and just like that, I was done. I had only been bitten twice during the ordeal, which was not bad. I sealed the tank up, and the mission was complete. I was happy to know that it would be months until the next maintenance visit into the canopy of Vortecia was due. And just on time, the great typhoons arrived to cool off the lands. Over the past 4 days, the bobbleheads had settled into their new network of triple islands quite nicely. I ended up swapping out the base to one large shared glass pan for the 2 smaller islands, as this was much more space efficient. My dreams of Avista becoming a huge archipelago of floating islands were coming true, as were my dreams of Vortecia. AC family, look! It was now a multi-species vivarium. The roaches lived happily in the forest habitat provided by Vortecia. They occupied the leaf litter, huddled in spaces within the driftwood, and even were daring enough to climb up into the treetops and congregate along the screen mesh. Escaped ants were collected one by hand over the passing days and inserted back into Vortecia. The rest were hunted down by the house geckos that run loose in the ant room. Speaking of hunting, I did also catch the ants hunting the roaches. Look at this. They caught a huge adult male. I had no idea they could seize prey this big. Or maybe it had already died and they were opportunistically making use of the carcass. Whatever the case, now that these tree-dominated territories of Vortecia and Avista were restored anew, and the ants residing in these lands we created, enjoying upgrades to their homes, it filled my heart with so much joy. One thing's for sure, I learned today how intimately connected my ants were to the trees that lived in their territories, how protective they were of them, and just how much the health and well-being of the ant colonies inherently depended on the health and well-being of the plants they live with. Isn't that something we continue to discover every time we step into these micro-worlds of our ants, AC family? That to truly appreciate one organism, one must understand the bigger picture, understand how it's connected to other organisms around it. And when you do, understand why it's important to tend to, clean up, restore, respect, and appreciate the interconnectedness of life and the environment in which it is contained. And due to this great interconnection, Mother Nature has set up. I learned this week that in caring for life, we inherently care for ourselves. After a long and successful day, I looked down at the clippings and dead tree I had collected from our projects. Ordinarily, I would throw these away. But suddenly, an awesome idea came to me. An idea that I felt could possibly change and affect the lives of every creature and terrarium in the entire AC Antiverse. AC family, it was time to embark on a new and exciting biological engineering project. AC family, did you enjoy this week's episode? Trees are indeed integral parts of some of our ant colonies. And like last week, this week's episode is in part the AC team's collaboration with Mr. Beast, Smarter Every Day, Mark Rober, and thousands of other YouTubers in their quest to plant 20 million trees by January 2020. So be sure to be part of the Team Trees movement by visiting teamtrees.org to help out. It only costs $1 per tree. This simple gesture will make such a big difference globally. Also, if you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on the epic real-life stories of the ants and other creatures of the ant room. And don't forget to hit the like button every single time, including now. If you're new to the channel and want to catch up on all your AntsCanada lore, feel free to binge watch this complete storyline playlist here, which traces the origins of all the ant colonies of the ant room, so you can follow their stories and better appreciate how these ant kingdoms came to be and why we love them so much. AC in our colony, I have left a hidden cookie for you here if you'd like to see some extended play footage of me working within Vortecia, as well as the aftermath. The new Vortecia is just awesome with all its new creatures and modifications. Go check it out. And now it's time for the AC question of the week. Last week we asked, why do we need to cycle our tank before adding in our Great Water Beast? Congratulations to 9 hash browns, who correctly answered, you have to cycle your tank because if an animal went inside without cycling it, it would be filled with poison, namely ammonia from waste. Congratulations 9 hash browns, you just won a free ebook handbook from our shop. In this week's AC question of the week, we ask, name one of the bioactive creatures found in Vortecia. Leave your answer in the comment section and you could also win a free ebook handbook from our shop. Hope you can subscribe to the channel as we upload every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video to help us keep making more. It's Ant Love forever.